Hey guys, my name is Haley, and today I'm going to be doing another wrap up because it's been a little bit too long since I did a wrap up, and I have a million books to talk about. So we're going to try and get through this a little bit fast. But yeah, I read a lot like the end of February and into March, and then I didn't read for like the last 2 weeks of March. Besides, I think I read like one thing, basically since I went to Kate's house in Massachusetts for a week. And then a week afterwards, I was just stuck in a K-pop hole, mainly an Astro hole, because me and Kate just keep rewatching our own concert vlogs because we have a problem. But yeah, I'm gonna talk about the books that I did read, and we're just gonna get right on into it. So, the first book that I finished after my last wrap up, whenever that was, I want to say it was at like the beginning of March, I finished Beartown by Fredrik Backman, and this was my first Fredrik Backman, and if you've been following me on Goodreads, I have started to devour his books. I love his writing. This book in particular has been my favorite so far, and I've read like half of his stuff at this point, and I haven't had a book make me so physically angry in quite a while. The only other one I can think of off the top of my head was Exit Pursued by a Bear, which was about a very, very similar subject matter, being rape. So this book is basically about a hockey town that their pride and joy is hockey. And one of the boys on the hockey team, right before like a very important game, rapes a girl. And it just follows this whole storyline of whether hockey's gonna come first or whether this like problem is gonna come first, and whether he's gonna be persecuted or whether the girl's gonna press charges. And it's just, I think it's just that rape is such a touchy subject, especially with females. Like, it makes me so angry that something like this can happen, and that's all I'm gonna say. But I loved this book. I gave it 4.75 stars. Probably gonna stay my favorite of Backman's books, but yeah. And then I picked up the sequel. By the way, I read all but like one of these books I'm going to talk about today on audiobooks. So yeah, that's how physical reading is going, if that gives you any indication. But next up, I read Us Against You, which is the sequel to Beartown. And while this was not quite as frustrating as the first one, it's still very, very impactful. Like, I think he just talks about really, really like prevalent topics in today's day and age, and this one definitely had its moments of I can't believe that this is something that can happen in real life, but I know that it does. So yeah, I love this one as well. I gave this 4.5 stars. It was just as good as the first one, just didn't have that like spark of just intense fury that I had trying to listen to the first book. I'm just gonna say right now, if you are at all touchy about sexual assault or physical assault or rape, please don't read these, because it's very, very, very triggering, I can imagine, because it's so detailed and horrifying. And I just, as you can see, these books definitely got to me. And I honestly think Beartown's gonna be on my favorites of the year because I loved it, and it springboarded me into reading all of Backman's other books. So the sequel was also great. Next up, I picked up a very different book, and that is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. This is a high fantasy that has been hyped to death over the last couple of years. And I kind of went in knowing that I didn't think that I would love it, but I also was still disappointed by it. I've heard so many people rave about this book and about Nona and about the assassin school and everything. And I just had such a hard time getting into this. Like, I had to start this audiobook 3 times from the beginning because I couldn't get past like the first 10 to 15% without being like, what is going on? And like even slowing down the speed to like 1.5 speed, which I never listen to audiobooks on anything less than 2 times speed, unless the narrators, which on occasion does happen, unless they're talking really, really fast. I will occasionally slow down, or I'll slow down high fantasy and sci-fi in the beginning just so I catch names and stuff. But I don't know what it was about this audiobook. I was like having such a hard time getting into it and like comprehending what was happening. And I read that beginning 3 times and I still probably couldn't tell you what happened at the beginning. Like, I literally don't remember any of the beginning, And I can only remember once like Nona gets to the school, basically. And it did get better at that point. Like the middle of this book was actually pretty good, and then the ending got weird again, and like I was having issues like comprehending. And I don't know if it was just Mark Lawrence's writing style. I don't know if it was the audiobook narrator. I don't know if it was just because I didn't connect with any of the characters at all, like especially Nona. While I find her interesting, she doesn't make sense to me. Like her motivations don't make sense to me, and her as a character doesn't make sense to me. So I struggled with this, and I ended up giving it like a 3.25 stars, I believe. I don't know if I want to continue the series. Like the only reason I even read this one, because number one, these physical editions for whatever reason in the US are so hard to find. Like it doesn't exist in hardcover anywhere, and it doesn't even really exist in paperback besides like mass market paperbacks. And I was like, what's going on, Mark Lawrence, with your books in the US? But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna end up buying these physically, but I also don't want to pay for the audiobooks. I got this free with an Audible trial, and I've just had it on my phone for forever, and that's the only reason that I decided to read it, because I got it for free. But I'm not gonna pay like $15 for the second one or the third one, which I think is about to come out. So if these ever appear on my Overdrive and in my libraries, maybe I'll pick them up, but other than that, I don't think I'll be picking up the sequels anytime soon. And the next up, I picked up one of Fredrik Backman's novellas, and that is The Deal of a Lifetime. Honestly, I picked this up next because it was the shortest. Like, the audiobook is only like 40 minutes long, and I listen to audios on 2x speed, so this only took me 20 minutes to listen to. And wow, does it pack a powerful punch in 20 minutes. This is kind of a Christmassy novel, as you might be able to guess from the title or like the cover. I don't think it's one of those Christmas novels that like you can only read around Christmas time, otherwise it just feels wrong. I think this stood by itself without it being Christmas. Like it's almost summer. Well, it's spring here, and we're hoping for summer very soon because we're tired of the winter here in Ohio. But I just thought this was super sweet. I gave it 4 stars. I just love Bachman's writing and the way that he like sets up his characters that are just so deep, and so you feel so moved by like their internal thoughts. And I don't know, I just relate to his writing style really well. So I gave this 4 stars. I definitely recommend it. I feel like this is the least known of his books because it is a novella and it's very short. So yeah, I really liked this one. And right after that, I picked up his other novella, which is And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. This was also just absolutely heartbreaking. And I was like listening to it while I was doing laundry and just being like, I need a minute. I gave this a 4.75 stars. It's about a grandpa who's like starting to get Alzheimer's, and he's talking to this little boy that's like his grandson, and it's just the most heartbreaking but heartwarming thing you've ever read in your entire life. And this is also only like an hour or so audiobook, so like half an hour to 40-minute listen time for 2x speed, and it made me feel a lot of emotions, which seems to be the case with like all of his books. And then on a very different note, I listened to Blood Rights, which was one of the few things that I think I read on the train, or I think this was actually before my trip to Massachusetts. But this is book number 6, which is the middle of the series of the Dresden Files. I thought it was good. It wasn't my favorite. These middle books have not been my favorite. Like, I like where Harry Dresden is as a character, but I have not been loving the fact that the middle of this series takes place with a lot of fae and fae culture, which are the fairies, which if you've been here for a while, you know I don't love fae. They're not my favorite like magical creature to read about. I find that the fact that they're over-sexualized really creepy and just gross. So yeah, these fae books have not been my favorite, which has been the whole middle of this series. But I do still really like Harry Dresden. I still really like this series, and I'm still reading them. But I gave this a 3.25 stars. And then next up was the only physical book that I read, and I read it because it was my try a chapter for physical books, and that's apparently the only way that I'm reading physical right now. But I read The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I've wanted to read this book for literal years, probably since I found out BookTube was a thing and people were talking about it years ago. I know there's only 3 books in the series out. I know it's supposed to be a super long series. I know Samantha Shannon just came out with a new giant book that I'm probably gonna have to read because I actually really liked her writing style. This surprised me, number one, in the try a chapter, because I did not expect to pick this one at all. Like, I've heard for years from, I feel like, literally everyone about how hard this is to get into, like, and how confusing the world and the, like, magic is. And I didn't find it difficult to get into it all, so I was kind of confused why people think that. And I don't know if I just followed a bunch of people that don't read a lot of high fantasy, but this didn't feel any different from any other high fantasy that I've ever read, so I don't know if that was just a me thing, but I really liked our main character. I really, really liked the love interest. I found the world fascinating, and the, like, powers in it were super cool. The dynamic between our main characters was really, really interesting. I found it very believable, and, like, I did feel like the, like, it wasn't insta love, but, like, insta interest was a little bit fast, but it kind of made sense, so it really didn't bother me. The only complaint that I have is that I don't think that Samantha Shannon does endings very well, because the ending felt very rushed. I feel like the entire climax happened in the last, like, 50 to 60 pages, because I got to, like, towards the end and I was like, we only have this much of the book left. How is this gonna be wrapped up? And, like, I know it's a series, but, like, you still have to wrap some things up in the first book. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I'm really excited to continue with the rest of the series. Although it might be a little bit because I am not buying physical books right now, mainly because I keep buying Astro albums and PCs instead of buying other things. That's where all of my money is going right now. And then I went to Kate's house. Kate, if you don't know and have never seen her channel, first of all, how did you find me and not Kate? If you haven't seen her, I will link her channel down below. She does the same type of videos as I do, with basically books and K-pop is all we ever post anymore. There's been a lot more K-pop recently since we got into Astro, but that's fine. But she owns a lot of manga, and there were a couple times that she had to go to class while I was at her house for the week. So I read quite a few of her mangas. The first one being I Hear the Sunspot. I read this entire series. You're about to hear me talk about all 3 of them. This was super cute. It was I really liked the art style. I really liked the character development, and, like, such a short little manga. I really liked both of our main characters. This is about a boy who is hard of hearing, and he ends up picking this guy out to be his note taker for classes in college, and it's so cute. I really liked it. I was a big fan. And then I immediately read the second one, which is I Hear the Sunspot, Theory of Happiness. So these books were meant to be, like, one-offs, and then this one's much bigger than the first one and just as cute, and there was, like, some conflict in it, which was appreciated because I felt like it was getting a little too fast in the, like, romance. But then these 2 one-offs got picked up for a series, so there's a third one. By the way, I gave these first 2 4 stars. And then there's a third one, which is I Hear the Sunspot Limit 1, which is volume 1 of what's gonna be a series. And while I did not love this third one as much, because it very much feels like a setup for the rest of the series, I gave it 3.5 stars. I definitely want to buy these. They're really, really cute, and I'm a big fan of the art style, so I will eventually buy them whenever I start buying books again. But I really enjoyed this series, and I'm so glad that I got the chance to just binge read them in the week that I was at Kate's house. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have read anything that entire week. And then the last thing I read while I was there was I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, which, yes, is a very strange title because it's a weird translation thing between Japanese. But this is basically about a girl who starts talking to this boy in her class. He finds her diary and finds out that she has pancreatic cancer. And the idea is, in this culture, if you want to get rid of something, like if there's a diseased part of the body, the translation comes out to I want to eat your pancreas, but, like, as in I want to take away your sickness. So it's not as creepy as it sounds, because it kind of sounds like it could be like a zombie or, like, cannibal novel, but that is not at all what it is. It's just a really cute, like, friendship and dynamic between these 2 characters. And listen. Kate told me there was a plot twist, and like, I thought I knew what it was. I did not. I was shocked. It blew me away. I literally put the book down and was like, what? So this is another one that I highly recommend if you do read manga. Even if you don't, I feel like this being a one-off manga makes it really easy to get into. And I gave this 4.5 stars because I really, really liked it. And it's another one I'm gonna buy eventually. And next up is the only thing that I listened to on my train ride out to meet Kate, and I finished it on the way home because I barely read it on the way there. I basically listened to Astro the whole way there, but that's besides the point. Was Penance by Kanae Minato, which I definitely enjoyed her other book, which was Confessions, which I think I read back in November-ish. It's one of those Asian thrillers with their like very straight to the point, like, writing style, as in like they'll just drop a bomb of truth and like brutality on you and then like skip over it like nothing happened, which I do really like about this writing style. But I don't know if it was my fault for trying to finish this right after the Astro concert and I was completely in a K-pop hole and like couldn't focus on anything else. But by the time we got to like halfway through this book, I did not care what was going on. I didn't follow it as well as I did with Confessions. I ended up giving it like 2.75 stars, and I think it was just because I didn't care about the characters. I liked the first like 20-25% of it, and I was like very invested. I was like, okay, this is creepy, this is weird, I'm into it. And then it just dropped off for me, and I don't know if it was the characters, I don't know if it was my mood, I don't know if it was the K-pop obsession, but I did not enjoy this one very much at all. So I gave it 2.75 stars. I think I am going to keep reading her books as they get translated into English, but this one I did not enjoy as much as Confessions whatsoever. Then for the rest of the way home, I listened to Deadbeat by Jim Butcher. This is the 7th book in the Dresden Files. This one I did like a little bit more than the other one, even though there was still some Faye stuff that I'm not quite on board with because I don't like Faye, as I've said several times. But I think this took a step in the right direction by involving more like completely normal humans into the mix of like all of these monsters and demons and like wizards and stuff. So yeah, I did like this one quite a bit more. But I did only give it 3.5 stars because it definitely has not been my favorite in the series. I think my favorite was probably the 4th or 5th one, whatever those were called. I really liked those two, I'm pretty sure. And then the rest of them have just been okay. I want to say it's the 4th one. That's been my favorite so far. And we're like more than halfway through the series. I think there's 13 of them out right now. And I think there's a couple short story collections, which we'll see if I can find on audio because I'm definitely not buying these books right now. And I don't know if I ever will since most of them are just okay. I do own the first 3 in physical edition, but I think I'm okay with just listening to them on audio because they're really, really easy reads, which was why I read 2 of them in my like reading slump deal in the last couple of weeks. And then the last book that I have finished at this point is A Man Called Uva, which is another Fredrik Backman. This one, the beginning is really funny because it's just this grumpy old man trying to like buy an iPad or something from like the Apple store, and he has no idea what he's talking about or what he wants. He just wants the best iPad, and it's really entertaining beginning. And then this one is also told in a lot of flashbacks, which is, I feel like, normal for Bachman's writing style. And there were parts of it that I was kind of annoyed because this man, like, he's not just a grumpy old man. He's a mean, grumpy old man. So he's kind of hard to, like, listen to the comments he makes about people sometimes. But you definitely see the character development of him throughout it. It's really, really heartbreaking, but also heartwarming. It was very good. I gave it 3.75 stars. Definitely not my favorite of his books, but I did really, really like it. And I'm definitely going to continue reading Bachman's books because, quite frankly, he might become a new favorite author because I'm a little bit obsessed. I also really like his audiobook narrators for some reason. I'm not sure what's different about them, but I think the audiobooks are the way to go if you're going to read his books. Like, I'm sure they're just as good in physical form, but I'm a big fan of the audios. Having, as someone who's listened to a ton of audiobooks this year, those are good ones. And those are all the books that I've read since, I want to say, the beginning of March. which was how many? 15 books, but like 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of them were manga and 2 of them were super short novellas. So that number is just out there. Which sounds like a lot because I feel like I'm in a bit of a reading slump, but apparently not that much. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys next time. Maybe someday soon I'll actually have physical books to hold up.